everyone. Welcome to mini lecture 12. For today's lesson, we're going to be talking a little bit about soil formation since it's relevant to today's virtual field trip. So soil is basically rock or sediment that has been physically, chemically, and biologically broken down over time. In other words, it's rock and sediment that's been interacting with rainwater, organic material from plants, and also organisms like worms. There are three main processes that are important for soil formation. That's chemical and physical weathering. So chemical weathering is the breakdown of rocks and other sediment materials through chemical processes, such as when salt dissolves into water. Physical weathering is the mechanical breakdown of these materials through processes, for instance, root wedging, which is where plant roots break or split apart rocks. So both of these processes kind of help at first to break down these materials to start to form soil. Then you need downward percolation of water, or in other words, infiltration, if you've already watched the other lesson this week, and picking up clay and carrying that material further downward. This area where you're picking up clay and kind of moving it is called the zone of leaching. And then below that, you precipitate new minerals, which is called the zone of accumulation. And then the final step is mixing of organic material or dead leaves, roots, animals, waste materials with that organic sediment material. This process creates different soil horizons when you look at it in profile or when you cut into it like a cake. So you get at the top the O horizon. And O stands for organic, which is relevant because it consists almost entirely of humus, which is decaying plant material. So that's always at the top. We can get an A zone below that where the humus is mixing with clay, silt, and sand sediments. And then water in the A horizon is causing chemical reactions and clay minerals to form here. So this is one of those zones of leaching. Below that, you can have an E zone, or you might not, which is a zone of substantial leaching. And then following that below is the B horizon, which is where you're getting the accumulation of ions and clay. So that's really your zone of accumulation. And then finally, C is where you're getting this broken down substrate that has not undergone any substantial leaching. And then on this diagram here, R simply refers to the parent or the source material there. So just to show you what this would actually look like, this is a soil profile from the Buffalo River in Arkansas. We just went there on a field trip recently. And so the O horizon is at the top, where you're getting this dead plant material or organic humus. Then below that, we have an A horizon, where we're getting the movement of clay minerals, and then we have a very small B horizon, and then at the bottom, this is a gravel bar. So the source or the material that's being broken down and creating or turned into soil are these pebbles down here on this gravel bar. So soil development really depends on a few different things, climate being the most important of these things. So climate is just variations in rainfall and temperature over the globe that affects the rates of leaching in these areas. So climate is very influential on soil development. Substrate type is also very influential. So that's the type of bedrock or sediment that is being turned into soil. So that would vary based off of whether it's granite, whether it's sandstone, whether it's volcanic ash. And remember this volcanic ash component because we're going to be seeing volcanic ash altered a couple times in these virtual field trips. Slope also influences the development. Soils are thicker on flatter land than on steeper slopes. And if you think about it, that does make sense because when you're on flat land, you don't have any gravity force causing any of that to fall down the slope or mass moving. Wetness also influences soil development, which kind of goes along with climate, but also soil's interaction with groundwater. So if there is groundwater in the area, that can influence soil development. time as well. So younger soils tend to be thinner than older soils because of the rate of formation, and that can vary with the environment. So when you have younger soils, just not as long of a time to develop. So obviously it makes sense you would have a thinner layer, whereas when it's older, there's more time for that soil to undergo the leaching processes that are needed, and so you get thicker soils. And then finally, the local ecosystem also influences soil development, and that can include the plants and the animals that live in that area. So what exactly is being decayed and what is also breaking down that material. So we're going to end this mini lecture here just taking a look at the soils around the world. So all of these fancy names in the key on the left, alpha sols, andisols, aridisols, entisols, those are all different types of soils. And sol just means soil. So what you're going to see in the upcoming lectures is we're going to be looking at paleosols, which just means fossil or ancient soil. Now, as we look at this map, you might notice some patterns. For instance, in South America and Africa along the equator, you're seeing lots of that red color. Those are oxisols. In the United States, there's a large area of mollisols in that green, and that's also seen in parts of Eastern Europe and in Asia. And then as you go further north, you can see those gellisols, or that very green color, as well as the gray rocky land. And what you might notice is that those soils change based off of the latitude or how close you are to the equator. So again, they're really following climate. There's a lot of different variations on the smaller scale. You'll see a lot of different colors spattered here. But those red soils indicate soils that form in tropical climates. And on the other extreme, those northern, the blue soils, the blue color indicating the gellisols, those would form in very cold, dry climates. So just to get a visualization of how these soils change related to our climate zones. Now go ahead and, as usual, finish the rest of today's lesson on the gangplank. And remember these for any quizzes and answer any associated questions. Enjoy!